Christina wants to know how we feel about the rumor that in about 30 years there will be no more NFL due to all the changes in the game they are trying to come up so players suffer less injuries on the field and once they're off.
Well,
and that's actually something we wanted to talk about.
Well, yeah,
too,
she's
so
speaking about the Bernard Pollard quote from the other day. He's the safety from the Ravens, and he actually came out and said, with the way the NFL's going, we're not going to have an NFL in 30 years. And he says that because of all the rule changes they're making. They're trying to make it less violent. They're trying to take the hits out of the game. And if they do that, it's not going to be football. If you want to watch flag football, if you want to watch two-hand touch, I'm sure we can arrange that.
Well, that's one of the... Me and you have actually talked about this before on the show, how they're making all these changes and that one day, sooner or later, you're not going to even be playing the game that everybody
Shout
fell
out to
in love
Pixel, who
with.
just joined us as well.
And, you know, I look at this, and I can't disagree with the guy. It's not like football is going to be dead, which is actually the way he said it. Football, the way we know it today, may be dead. They're still going to play some form of the game. But at some point or another, when is somebody just going to look at all these people that are saying, oh, it's so dangerous, and say that the guys that complain the least about the danger of the game are the ones that are playing the game? It is a choice sport. It is a decision sport. Okay, it is not like a tennis or a golf or a basketball. It's not like those games. Every pitcher that steps on the mound on a baseball field knows somewhere in the back of his head, even though he knows better than to think about it, that ball at any moment can be line drive right back to his head. At any moment, on any pitch of any game. And there are over 120 pitches thrown in a baseball game. Every game. Now, I understand the percentages of being hurt are different. But the fact of the matter is, as a pitcher, you accept that. As an outfielder, when you go running after a ball, I mean, nobody sat there and said, oh my God, Jeter might have real brain issues in 50 years when he went running through the freaking wall and over the wall and hit his head on one of the chairs and came out. I mean, remember that? That's one of the most famous Jeter plays ever. Nobody ever sat there and said, man, what's going to happen to him in like 20 years? Is this head going to be okay? I understand people don't say that because his percentages are lower. The hits to the head, percentage-wise, don't happen as often.
Yeah.
But it's still a decision. Just like they always say, corners make...
but it's also a decision in a lot of sports. Boxing, very violent. UFC, very violent, very popular right now. UFC is actually way more popular than boxing. And it's been that way for many years now. At least probably 8-10 years. Boxing's been down. So I'm just watching you get frustrated over there. It's funny to me. But yeah, it's a violent, you know what you're getting into when you play football. You know it. You know the risk. And even 20, 30 years ago, people knew the risk. When you're running full speed and colliding into people, you instantly know there's a risk for injury.
Pretty much. I mean,
whether you tear a knee up and guys never recovered from that and they had to leave the sport. So what does that mean? They should stop running the ball? Because you tore your knee up? But look at what Adrian Peterson did coming back from that. You've had concussions. Guys have had concussions and came back and won Super Bowls the next year.
And retired and lived a happy and healthy life as well.
Some guys are still living happy and healthy. Look at Steve Young. Look at Troy Aikman. Two guys that are blatantly known to have their careers ended short by concussions. Living pretty large. Seems like they're all right to me.
Yeah. No,
I mean, if you want to see what blows it had to do, look at Muhammad Ali.
Then,
honest to God. Yeah. The guy is one of the greatest athletes in sports history, the greatest boxer ever. Very smart man in his prime.
very, very, very good with
And
his
now he's a
words, so.
shaken mess. But he knew the risk, and everybody knows it's from getting punched in the head 500,000 times.
Yeah.
Of course there's a risk. And if you don't want your kid, especially nowadays when everybody is so conscious and you have, all these, almost overprotective parents out there, and I understand that you want to look out for the health and safety of your children, 100%. No parent puts their kid in a sport and wants to see them get hurt.
Yeah.
If you're putting your kid in a sport, you want to see your kid have fun, you want to see him succeed, you want to see him play well, but the last thing you want to see is them hurt.
Yeah, you want to see all the positive sides of the
Exactly.
sport. You don't want to see them, even when it comes down to winning and losing, you don't ever want to see
And
your kid lose.
And it's not just in football, it's in basketball, baseball, soccer, any of these sports. There's, you easily can get injured. Now, it's not all head traumas like there are in football, but like we've talked about before, one of the biggest reasons there are so many head-to-head collisions in this sport is because those helmets are almost indestructible.
Yeah.
And they know they can use it as a weapon. They know they can hit somebody with the crown of their helmet and it's gonna lay a licking.
Maybe even get the crown of their helmet on the ball to force a fumble.
There's a lot of different ways.
Of things to it.
Years ago, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you didn't have the headshots you have now because the protective wear wasn't as good.
No, they were
So
walking
guys
around
were-
with like a slight pad under their jersey and a little
And a leather helmet.
thing on
Well,
top of their head.
even when you go beyond the leather helmet and you go into the 70s with the Cowboys and the Steelers, I mean, the Steel Curtain is still known as one of the best defenses ever. Hard-hitting, hard-nosed, tough guys. None of those guys had serious head trauma. None of those guys, you never see video of them leading with their head. And it's because they didn't have these big, huge, bulky, helmets. They had little, tiny plastic helmets. Little face bars in front of them. They don't have big cages like they have now. Like, who is it from the Giants? JPP, or is that one that's got
Tuck.
Or Tuck.
Tuck.
Looks like Shredder almost.
Yeah. And now Ray Lewis rocks it. He actually started sort of a trend, a couple different guys.
Yeah, but the thing is you're just adding more, another thing for a guy to say, well, now nobody can reach through my face and poke me in the eye. Now nobody can hit me in the face or do anything stupid. Now it's harder for them to grab my face mask.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Just another reason for them to use their head some more. Take the helmets out of the game, and I bet you won't see as many headshots. You can keep the pads, keep the shoulder pads, keep the leg pads. I bet you by reducing the helmets, you would cut down on the headshots. And that's the biggest worry right now in football. It's not necessarily all injuries combined because guys have torn their knees up for years. Guys have had, arm injuries and, all sorts of injuries.
No, the real concern is the long-term effects of what it does to your brain.
The CTE.
It's not really people being worried about you getting a concussion in one game and, missing a week or whatever it might be. It's not people worrying about broken bones or things like that. It's people worrying about that long-term brain damage.
But you can't
that causes guys like a Junior Seau to commit suicide. And
Listen,
what?
I'm telling you what. It wasn't the headshots. I'm sorry. As much as you want to blame the CTE, Junior Seau knew there was something wrong with his head. He knew that he wasn't right. Because he took shots in football wasn't the reason he killed himself.
But see,
I'm sorry.
You don't know that.
You do.
You don't, though. You do not know what caused these guys to kill themselves. Just like you don't know what causes people to go off and murder a bunch of people and then kill themselves. You don't know what actually caused it. You can assume whatever you want to assume. But the bottom line is you truly do not know. I don't know why you do certain things. You don't know why I do certain things. It is how it works. People have their own reality in their mind.
But if you don't know, then why just say you got to get rid of the sport then? If you don't know and you're not sure if this is the reason why or not, then why are so many people concerned if they can't even pin it down to this is the reason why?
Because they're trying to say that most likely the doctors out there say that consistent shots to the head over a long period of time causes CTE. CTE some way, somehow causes people into a state of depression that makes them want to take their own life. That is the only thing that they say, and they won't even write it. It's not like they're writing it down in sports journals. I've never heard a single doctor actually stick his name to that statement. But that is what they're saying. So just like they don't know, we don't know. We have no idea what was going on in Junior Seau's head or any other player that might have done this.
Let me just see if you can follow me here. Junior Seau, one of the best linebackers in football when he played. Popular. Everybody in the league knew who he was. Popular among fans. From city to city, even if he didn't play on your team, you knew who he was. Nothing but fame and fortune for this guy for 15 plus years. Retires from the game not because he wanted to, but more because his skills diminished and no team really wanted him. Gets thrusted from the limelight, out of the limelight. Now he's sitting at home. He has nothing to do, nowhere to go. All his friends are still playing, and he's bored. It gets to be a fact that once you're so famous and once you're used to traveling around and doing things every week, training, going places, when you just get home and you sit there and you do nothing, it depresses you. Not necessarily the shots to the head that depress you. It's the fact that you're no longer playing what you love to do, and you're no longer the person you used to be. So now people aren't recognizing you like they used to. People aren't seeing you the way they used to, and people don't really know who you are anymore.
You're making it sound like the guy literally just sat in his house by himself all the time. He's literally one of the biggest faces and names in the city of San Diego on a daily basis, constantly part of fundraisers, town events. He's always at the beach, surrounded by people, going surfing with people.
He's trying to reach that level that he was before, and he was never going to reach it, and that's what depressed him.
Curled up in a fetal position on the floor by himself.
But being the man in San Diego, which he really even wasn't, I'll bet you more people would know who Phillip Rivers were at this point than know who Junior Seau was. So he had left there at the end of his career anyway. I'd be willing to bet money his depression came from that, and not necessarily just the CTE. Now, maybe did the CTE play into it? Maybe. But because guys are now diagnosed with CTE, does that mean you have to shut down the sport? Is that going to save somebody's life? Is that going to make somebody happier? Are they not going to be depressed just because they're not playing football?
No, because what the bottom line is it's a choice. That's really all that matters from, like, in my point of view, that's really the bottom line.
But going back to the original point of whether football will be here 30 years from now.
Yeah, the original actual question.
The original actual question. I think it'll be here, but it's going to have to be in some different form. Because too many people are out there worried, and too many people, when it starts affecting the sport to the fact that you're not going to allow your kids to play it, that'll really be the determination. If youth football starts to deteriorate, you're going to see it deteriorate at other levels.
But yeah, because the less kids that get put into the mix, the less talent pool, the less. I was just talking about this yesterday with boxing. It's pretty much what happened. The kids coming up sat there and said, there's no money in this anymore. There's no fame in it anymore. And the best boxers won't even fight each other. So let's go into other sports. Let's go into MMA. Let's go into this. Let's go into that. And the talent pool thinned out in boxing. Now you barely have any boxers worth mentioning. And the sport of boxing is pretty much dead. So it's the same concept. It's the kids that play football and their parents stop putting them in the game of football, the talent pool lessens.